Let the chaos begin. The Falcons were a QB away, but is Kirk that QB?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. And guys, if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, aka Mr. Drew, aka Sirius Black, aka the Jolly Green Giant, aka the Iron that sharpens the iron, aka Mr. aka, and I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for a very long time, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP, still going strong on this illustrious podcast. And I thank each and every one of you that is an everydayer of this pod that goes strong with me and makes this podcast your first listen, first watch each and every day. And to become an everydayer, all you have to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So today we are talking about the Falcons' Week 1 loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers by a score of 18-10. The defense does its jobs. The offense doesn't. And we got, how much of that is on Sark? I mean, Zac Robinson. And we got to start with the quarterback, right? The Falcons were deemed a quarterback away, and maybe they still are after their 18-10 loss to the Steelers in Week 1. And we got to start this thing out talking about the Kirk Cousins Chaos Meter, right? Which is something that Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings put out there on Twitter over the last several years, covering Kirk Cousins. I'm not going to do the Twitter stuff, but we're going to talk about it on the podcast. I told you guys all offseason long that we will bring the chaos to the post-game rapid reaction episodes, and didn't think we would start off the show introducing you to the chaos. I figured, that's a third segment thing or whatever, but no, we got to start there. For those of you not familiar with Luke's work, and we're adopting it from Luke, basically 4 levels, right, on the chaos meter. Level 1 is conserva Kirk, where Kirk is too conservative to his own good. Level 2 is like game manager Kirk, which is fine, managing the game, put your team in a position to be successful. Level 3 is peak Kirk. This is the good version of Kirk Cousins, right? It's a spectrum, right? From extremely conservative to chaos. And that chaos is level 4, according to Luke Braun. But we're adding a 5th level to this, right? And that 5th level is the chaos gets to a point where it's like, is it time to start Michael Penix? And we're not at level 5. Today was a level 4 Kirk Cousins chaos game, right? And, we got to think of it, for those of you not familiar with it, my international listeners, here in the United States, we have things called like DEFCON 1, DEFCON 5. It's counterintuitive because DEFCON 1 means that like basically the world's about to end, and DEFCON 5 means we're just all chilling on the couch, eating potatoes and potato chips and watching Friends reruns and whatnot. That's DEFCON 5. But, we have DEFCON 1 meaning Kirk is going to be extremely conservative. DEFCON 5 means it's over for the Kirk Cousins era. We're not there yet. We're not going to be there for a while, but we were definitely on level 4 today, right? It's chaos, right? And, the Falcons aren't going to turn to Michael Penix, but it's going to be a talking point. And this is what we talked about after the draft, right? This was the Pandora's box that Raheem Morris was opening by drafting Michael Penix, that there's going to be this quarterback controversy, even when there shouldn't be a quarterback controversy. And, that's going to be a talking point all year long from media, from fans at this point in time. And the only thing that stops it from being a talking point is the team winning football games. And I don't think the Falcons won today, but, let me know in the comments if I got that wrong. But, I remember someone saying after the Falcons drafted Penix, they were like, they tweeted out, they were like, oh, we're never going to talk about the quarterback ever again. And it's like, I don't think you understand how this sport works, how Twitter works, how the media works, how fans work, because that's all we're going to talk about is the quarterback. Every single week, we're going to talk about the quarterback. That's what happens, in this league. When, if you're getting elite quarterback play, like, you talk, even when you got Patrick Mahomes, you're still talking about the quarterback. You're just talking about how great he is, right? And this is what I was talking about after the draft, where it's like, we're going to have tremendous content, guys. However it goes. Falcons are successful. We're going to be sitting here being like, this is tremendous. Raheem Morris is the greatest coach of all time. Falcons are struggling. We're like, Falcons are falconing again. Either way, we got tremendous content. I know some of you guys are like, oh, he's happy that the Falcons lost. No, I'm not, guys. I'm pissed off that the Falcons lost. But I can process my emotions. And I can't control whether or not the Falcons can win or lose football games. What I can control is doing the best podcast possibly available for you guys. And, I think I do a pretty good job at that. And so again, that's where the smile is coming on my face, because you have to just laugh through the pain, because as a Falcon fan for 34 years, it's like, oh, typical Falcons. Why did I ever get myself hyped up for this team? Why would we ever do that? Right. So, we'll talk later about Zac Robinson and how he hamstrung the quarterback in a lot of ways with his game plan later in the episode. But let's talk about the things that Kirk could control. Right. And, to me, a lot of the things that we were concerned about with Kirk Cousins kind of showed up in this game, right? Where, I questioned a little bit that, is Kirk's arm cooked at this point in time, right? Can he really throw outside the numbers? And it's a couple of throws where it's like, I don't know if he can really put that zip that you need on those throws outside the numbers. The probably the one that sticks out the most is probably I think the last throw that Kirk Cousins made in this game, where he threw a quick out to Ray-Ray McCloud on that final drive in the closing seconds of the game. And, that ball was a little short-armed, and Ray-Ray McCloud couldn't get out of bounds because Kirk couldn't put enough on the football. And it's like, that was a concern for us. And then the other big concern was the lack of mobility, right? That when that pressure comes, he's not going to be able to evade it. And, we'll talk about Zac Robinson, but, no play action in this game. But, I understood from a certain standpoint, with Zac Robinson, where it's like, you want to run some of these rollouts and whatnot, the sort of classic outside zone stuff, some of these rollouts, but you can't really do that because Kirk can't really move in all that regard. That's part of the reason why the Falcons were in pistol rather than under center, because they didn't necessarily want Kirk on the move coming off the Achilles at his age. Got a couple people trying to sit here and act like 19 miles per hour is fast. It's fast for a human being. It's not fast for football. It makes you one of the slowest players in the NFL if you only can run 19 miles per hour, and Kirk can't even break 19 miles per hour, by the way. But, that mobility issue did show up in this game, and it's why you need to have all the infrastructure around Kirk, firing on all cylinders in order to deal with these limitations. And the Falcons didn't really quite have the infrastructure. Again, that's going to be more of a Zac Robinson conversation as this episode continues. But there certainly are some concerns about Kirk Cousins. Hopefully the infrastructure will improve, because if they don't, then, we might be having that level 5 Kirk Cousins chaos conversation a lot sooner than we think, because we got some primetime games coming up, and historically speaking, Kirk doesn't necessarily perform that well in those primetime games. Again, a lot of people are going to ask, like, oh, would Kirk have played better if they had played in the preseason? Maybe. Again, certainly a worthwhile theory to throw out there. As we discussed when we signed Kirk is not historically known for playing his best football in September. So, even when he does play in the preseason. So I don't know if it necessarily definitively would have helped, but certainly today, after watching this offense struggle on Sunday to start the season, it's going to be hard to convince a lot of folks. And understandably, I'm not going to try to convince you that, hey, not playing in the preseason was a good thing, because clearly this team looked rusty heading into this week 1 game. And hopefully they knocked off the rust, because, they got some games they need to win coming up. So we will see on that front. But, the whole, hey, this team is a quarterback away. Well, that quarterback, still a quarterback away. Yeah. Is he going to show up? That's all. We'll see. But, I got a lot more issues with Zac Robinson's game plan than I do with Kirk Cousins' performance. I got issues with Kirk Cousins' performance, but, Zac Robinson, boy, it was rough. And we'll talk about how Kirk really let myself down, or not Kirk, Zac. Zac let me down. He let you down. He let Raheem down. He let Kirk down. He let everybody down with this performance. And we'll break that down as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, because it's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you versus the numbers. Pick more or less on up to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. And if you're looking to get on the action because certain sports books aren't available in your state, Prize Picks is. And withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure, and you can get money in as quick as 15 minutes. And I don't know if my more or less hit this week with Bijan on the rushing yards and whatnot. So I'll have to check Prize Picks app, but it's easy to do. If you want to check the app, see what's going on there for next week against the Eagles, or find a way to get your winnings quickly as you can on PrizePicks. All you got to do is download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And today's episode is sponsored by our friends at BetterHelp. And, you're sitting there as an adult trying to learn new things, and you're often wondering, like, can I do it at this? Can you teach an old dog new tricks at this point in time? Timely conversation when it comes to Kirk Cousins. But therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder, because your back to school era, can happen at any age. And therapy has taught me positive coping skills. Like, you can only control what you can control. I can't control whether or not the Falcons win on Sunday, but I can control whether or not you guys get a great podcast after win or lose. And therapy isn't just for those of you that have experienced major trauma. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and you'll get matched with a licensed therapist quickly. And you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge, which is much better than traditional offline therapy where they charge you money just because you don't have the right fit. Right fit, Falcons? Interesting. But rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. So before we eviscerate Zac Robinson on today's episode, let's talk about, who Tyler Rowland and Tony Wiggins will be eviscerating on the new Locked On NFL podcast. 2 shows every single day. Tyler giving you that shot of adrenaline, that shot of espresso first thing in the morning, and head on to the barbershop with Tony for that real sports talk. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So with Zac Robinson, the opening script looked pretty good, and then it kind of fell apart. And it was so reminiscent to me of Steve Sarkisian, for those of you that remember. That was a big talking point throughout that 2017 season, where the Falcons opening script, that those first 15 or so plays that are usually scripted, usually look pretty good. And then when the Falcons needed to make adjustments, going into the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, typically when that script runs out, the Falcons offense would really stagnate in those situations. And that's what it felt like to me watching. Like, the run game was popping, on that opening drive. They moved the ball 12 plays, got into field goal range. Things kind of ground to a halt, in the red zone and whatnot. But it was like, okay, like, this is looking good. We got to finish these drives. But it felt like, okay, like, we're doing some good things. And then, like, that was the best drive of the day for the Falcons offense. And really nothing else. Everything that they were throwing at the Steelers kind of got displayed on an opening drive, right? They were just we're going to run it left. And that's what we're going to do. No play action. That's what we're going to do. And it's like, that's interesting. That's an interesting choice. But the most interesting choice that the Falcons made today, and, if you happen to be a daily podcaster that spent this entire week being like, I ain't worried about no TJ Watt, man, you look stupid today, because you took something for granted that you just assumed that you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out, which is your game plan starts with stopping TJ Watt. And the Falcons, apparently Zach missed that meeting. He was late that day because he missed that entire meeting because he got there late because, that's what you started with the game plan meeting. And he got there late and he didn't go back and look at the notes or whatever at the meeting because they didn't have a plan for TJ Watt. They had Kaleb McGary on an island against TJ Watt. And, you guys know that, we live on Kaleb McGary, but TJ Watt is a category 12 hurricane. Like, you got to do something, my guy. You can't just be out here partying on the island when the category 12 hurricane, like, you're like, category 12, that's not a real thing, Aaron. Of course, that's how ridiculous it is. It's like Julio Jones. Like, I know a lot of you guys didn't listen to the Falcons historian player shootout that we did this summer, but we did an episode talking about Julio Jones. And one of the things I commented on that episode was, it was always baffling to me watching the film over the years and seeing teams being like, what we're going to do? We're going to single up Julio Jones and we'll see if Julio Jones can beat us. And it was always like the dumbest thing to me. It's like, why would you do that? Like, that's literally the dumbest idea. But the Falcons decided they challenged my assumptions that was the dumbest plan that you could do as a defensive coordinator with Zac Robinson's plan, which got to be the dumbest plan I've ever seen from an offensive coordinator, which is, I'm going to single up Kaleb McGary against TJ Watt. I'm going to single up Kaleb McGary, who can't deal with speed, against the best speed rusher in the NFL, and we're not going to give him any help. And then when they made the adjustment to give him some help, they were like, we're going to put Kyle Pitts on him. And it's like, you're taking out your according to Kirk Cousins, your best weapon. Like, this is what Charlie Warner was signed to do, guys. But like Zac Robinson's like, nah, man, nah. We believe in Kyle Pitts' ability to block, and we're gonna have him chip, and then we're gonna have him push TJ Watt outside, which is where Kaleb McGary's weakness is outside. And it's so crazy to me, Aaron. It's so crazy to me, guys, because like I'm sitting here, I'm watching the game last year against the Rams and Steelers. They did it perfectly. We talked about like this was so much of a no-brainer. Like, just take it for granted. Like, they had the blueprint last year. They neutralized TJ Watt in that game as a pass rusher by chipping him every time. Wide receiver, tight end, block him down, block him down, block him down. And the Falcons, Zac Robinson's like, nah, I missed that meeting. I missed that meeting. And I was just like, the idea that the most basic strategy was entirely a Sean McVay invention. Like, that's how genius Sean McVay is, because he's just like figured out the most basic. We're not going to let this one guy beat us. We're going to come up with the game plan. And the Falcons, brilliant coaches, their brilliant coaching staff was like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to let this guy beat us. We're going to let this guy beat us. And it was just so baffling. And then the other thing on top of that, in addition to the worst possible game plan that you could have against TJ Watt, right? As a Kaleb McGary Islander, it's like no one thinks Kaleb McGary can block this dude, right? Everybody's going to kill Kaleb McGary. And it's like, you set that dude up to fail. But the other thing was, where was the play action passing, guys? Where was it? Right? If you wanted Kirk Cousins, if you watch Kirk Cousins play, you're like, hey, you know what Kirk does really well? Play action passing over the middle of the field. Did the Falcons run any play action passing over the middle of the field? I can't wait to watch the film, because I'm looking at it with a magnifying glass, trying to find a play action pass attacking the middle of the field in this game. Because it was like, I didn't see anything. Did you guys see something? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know. Did you see something? Because I didn't see anything. So I can't wait to break down to all 22, because I'm just going to be like Sherlock Holmes out here investigating what this game plan was, because you didn't do anything. You didn't do anything to help your quarterback out, right? You basically said, I'm going to let the best defensive player, one of the best defensive players on the planet, depending on where you fall in the Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt spectrum. And it's just like I don't even think TJ Watt's the best player on the planet, best defensive player on the planet. Now that Aaron Donald's gone, he's like the second or third best defensive player. But when you set up these game plans like this, it's like clearly he's the best. Like, wow, this is crazy to me, wild to me, guys. It's ridiculous to me. But then you're just like, hey, we're not going to run any play action. We're running the football every first down, pretty much. It seemed like every single snap, and like no play action. And that was one of the things that to me was most fascinating about Zac Robinson, because I'm just like, yeah, because you can't necessarily run the traditional, we're going to run outside zone stretch plays, roll out stuff with Kirk Cousins dealing his mobility issues, especially if TJ Watt's going to be that unblocked defender on the backside on those classic rollouts that you would do, right? We talked about this, back in 21 with Arthur Smith and why he needed a mobile quarterback that wasn't Matt Ryan at that point in time. So I understood why the Falcons weren't doing that, but I was like, they're going to have to come up with something else to marry their run game with their play action passing game, because that's basically what this offense is supposed to be. We're going to run the football. We're going to run play action. That's the identity of this offense. And the Falcons were like, you know what? Play action. Forget that. We don't need that. We'll just run a straight drop back passing attack with TJ Watt singled up so that he can speed rush every single time. And it's just like, this is bad coaching. This is what bad coaching looks like, guys. So we can sit here, talk about Kirk Cousins. We can talk about Michael Penix. We can talk about anything. That was bad coaching. And I'm looking at you, Zac Robinson. I'm like, we sat here being like, there's no way that Zac Robinson's going to be bad, right? Again, it's a possibility. We don't know anything about Zac Robinson. We have no idea if Zac Robinson's going to be good, right? But we accepted the possibility, but it's like, no, there's no way, right? He's one of the hot commit, and like the stuff we're talking about is just basic stuff of like, hey, run play action and don't single up TJ Watt against a guy that struggles against speed. And it's just like, no, I'm not going to do it. And it's just like, wow, we are now considering the possibility that Zac Robinson is actually bad at his job. And that's going to be something that we will spend probably a good little time talking about this week, especially later this week when we watch the film. That's the Tuesday night, Wednesday episode. We'll get into it. We'll get into it, but we need to see some adjustments because, oh boy, guys. Like I remember when Dirk Cutter did this, right? In 2019 with a rookie Kaleb McGary, right? In that Rams game where Kaleb McGary got destroyed by Dante Fowler in that game. You guys remember that game? And no chip help. Like we're going to put a rookie on an island with Dante Fowler, and we just watched Dante Fowler beat Kaleb McGary like a drum all game long. And to see Zac Robinson being like, you know what we should do? Let's do that again. it's wild to me, guys. It's wild. It's like, ooh, boy, did we upgrade at play calling? Because like, I'm not sitting here marveling at what Arthur Smith did. He did Arthur Smith stuff, but I'm just sitting here going like, say what you will about Arthur Smith, but he knew, hey, I'm not going to leave these guys on an island. We're going to run play action. We're going to hide these guys. And it's just like, man, woo, the new play caller was like, no, we got the best offensive line in football. It's like, Now, if you happen to be a podcaster that was like, yeah, I don't know if this offensive line is as good as people hype it up to be, Jake did his job. Like Alex Highsmith, basically outside of like maybe one play. And the interior did it okay. Dahlman had some rough reps. But Bergeron, I think Lindstrom for the most part held up for my eyes, but like to basically throw Kaleb McGary to the Wolves was just a wild decision. Boy, that's wild. But I'm done complaining about the offense. Let's wrap up. Let's be positive. We got some positive things to say about the defense. So let's end on a positive note here, guys. Let's talk about the defense, and we'll do that to wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. Guys, it's summertime, right? Or it's the end of summertime. It's fall now, right? And so that means you got to get back in the stadium. And I know getting back in the stadium today was not all it was cracked up to be, but hey, that shouldn't stop you. We got the Chiefs coming on Sunday Night Football. So Game Time is going to help you take the guesswork out of buying tickets to that next Falcons game, or maybe you're heading up to Philadelphia and hoping for better days. Game Time has great things on their app, like the seat views, right? You want to line up that perfect situation where Eagles fans can throw batteries at you, right? Like your Santa Claus. You can find that perfect spot with the panoramic seat views in Game Time up at the link, right? And, whether you're looking for football tickets, whether you want to baseball tickets, other sports, comedy, music, theater, whatever event is near you, Game Time is helping take the guesswork out of buying tickets. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So wrapping up today's episode, guys, we'll be back tomorrow to give more thoughts on this game after, rewatching the game and whatnot. But let's talk about the defense. Right? I could sit here and nitpick, and I'm going to do a little nitpicking. You know me. I got to do me. Right. But for the most part, we'll probably get more into the nitpicking aspects of the defense later this week after we watch the film. But, relatively speaking, the defense did their job today. Right. They got stops. They forced Pittsburgh to settle for field goals. The third down defense was very rough in the first half. Pittsburgh converted 5 of 8 third downs in the first half, but they went 3 for 9 in the second half. I think a lot of that was aided. They got them into some more third and mediums, third and longs that played to the strength of this defense where they could pin their ears back, get after the quarterback. They needed to do a better job containing Justin Fields in the QB run game than they probably did. Probably just a few too many times where Fields was able to break off some runs and whatnot. But, Pittsburgh leaned on that run game in the second half. And that led to them getting some third and shorts, what they were able to successfully convert. But the Falcons were able to get some stops on some of those early downs, knowing that how the Steelers were going to play this and executing a better job. But the defense definitely played a winnable game, right? The expectation was like, hey, keep Pittsburgh under 20 points. Our offense should be able to get to 20-21, even against a very good Steelers defense. I know some people thought we might put a 30 burger up there. I was like, I don't think you guys watch the Steelers play defense. He's like 24 would be a great performance for the offense. But if we can get to 20, so it was like 20 to me was realistic for this offense for the Falcons, that is. And so, the defense did their job, right? They were like, hey, guys, just get the 20 points. All we need you to do is get the 20 points, and you can win this game. And the offense like, nah, we ain't about that life. But, the defense, for the most part, did their job. Grady Jarrett had a great game. Nice return to the lineup. Nice to see out there. Justin Simmons had a couple of nice plays in the second half. Matthew Judon kind of had a slow start, but you started to see him get after it in the second half. Mike Hughes getting after it. AJ Terrell, not so much, right? We'll talk more about AJ probably later in the week, but let's give Grady Jarrett his flowers, right? 3 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 3 quarterback hits. This was, classic old Grady Jarrett taking advantage of that questionable matchup at the center, at the left guard position for the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line. So it was nice to see. So we will end on a positive note. Hey, Grady's back. He's back, right? Looking good, doing Grady Jarrett things. It's nice to see Grady Jarrett out there doing good things. And, we got him some help Unfortunately, we didn't get the game-changing plays from that help that we were hoping for from Judon, Simmons, etc. and whatnot. AJ Terrell didn't quite live up to the contract. We understand, the bigger wide receivers tend to give him bigger problems, but certainly nobody had it on their bingo card that, AJ Terrell would be have the rougher game versus Mike Hughes. So at least Mike Hughes, quieted his critics this week. So we'll end on that positive note. Grady Jarrett's looking good. Mike Hughes we got one good game from Mike Hughes this year. So, that's one more than I think a lot of you guys expected. So Falcons defense exceeding expectations up to this point. We'll see what they can do against a Eagles offense that has some dudes, right? That's going to be the concern next week against the Eagles. Saquon, AJ Brown, that is, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. They got some dudes, and you let those guys, tackling's got to be a little bit better, I think, than today, especially with Saquon. But we'll see how the defense handles what the Eagles are going to throw at them. I'm not expecting, we'll see what the film says, but I'm not expecting the Eagles schematically, in Kellen Moore and whatnot, to be throwing all these crazy things at them. But it's just going to be execution. And at least in the second half of this game, I thought the Falcons defense did a better job executing. So they are certainly giving me more confidence that they'll be able to hold their own against the Eagles next week. We'll see about, the offense and whatnot, and whether or not they're going to hold their own against, Vic Fangio and company. So that's going to be a big question mark. We'll see if the offensive line bounces back. We'll see if Kirk and whatnot can recover. But disappointing. Debut for the Falcons, pretty typical Falcons performance. And it was like, we're hoping that, these days are over. Of course, they never beat the Steelers. Basically, they're 2-16-1 now all time against the Steelers. It's got to be the most lopsided, head-to-head between two teams that have been in the league since before the 90s, since many of you guys were born. And that continues to be lopsided. So, the master in terms of Mike Tomlin and Raheem Morris, the student, the master's still the master, the student's still the student. So we'll see what Raheem and company can do to bounce back. It's not going to be easy on the road against the Eagles next week. We'll see if the Falcons can do it. We'll obviously be breaking down more of this game tomorrow on the podcast, as well as on Tuesday and Wednesday, looking at the all 22. So make sure you continue to make Locked On Falcons your first listen by subscribing, following for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, and check out Locked On NFL if you want to hear about good football teams. Go check out Locked On NFL, see who Tony's talking about from this week 1 action, who impressed. Hey, the New Orleans Saints took care of business. It's like, man, it's tough, man. It's tough being a Falcon fan where he's like, oh, the Saints are going to suck this year. And then they go out and blow the brakes off of the Panthers, and the Falcons out here struggling against the Steelers. And it's like, all right, same old Falcons. So go check out Locked On NFL, guys, on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.